Serial Mom is a movie from the 90s. I don't know if there's any trigger warnings in it. Please look it up yourself before you watch. About a suburban mom who kills people over mundane things like not recycling for wearing white after Labor Day.
I looked up a poster for this. It looks wild. I want to see this weird film.
Have you seen Ben, a movie about a little boy who makes friends with a rat who is a revolutionary leader in the rat community who is trying to overthrow the humans, but then it turns out not really. The rats are just kind of discriminated against because people are really mean to rats. And it's actually an allegory for the civil rights movement.
Oh my God.
And then Michael Jackson sings a song at the end
about
how sad it is. And that's where that Michael Jackson song came from. And it's a good movie.
I've just checked the wonderful resource for if you want to check if our old thing has bad humor in it. DoesTheDogDie.com. Great website for just like general trigger warning stuff. They started as a website just for Does the Dog Die, and then they added in a bunch of other stuff. Serial Mom apparently does have some transphobia in it, unfortunately.
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry.
Like I said, just any movie at all from the 90s or 2000s.
I used to if I ever watch like a TV show made in the 90s, I play a game called How Many Episodes to Transphobia? Because it's always in season 1, and you can usually count it on your fingers how many episodes it is.
Have you seen the Block Island Sound? It's really good. It's like a Lovecraftian horror, but it really kind of gets inside a small town America kind of conservative, like MAGA adjacent like mindset and reactionary kind of viewpoint on the world in a way that's really like humanizing and sympathetic without being. It's called the Block Island Sound, and it's humanizing without like siding with any kind of bigotry or reactionary sentiment. Because the thing that like they connect you to the perspective through is fear, right? Like a huge existential horror, and that's the way that they make you understand this reactionary character's perspective, which is a thing we have in common. Reactionary people are terrified of the world.
Circles back to the almost father of cosmic horror was a man who kind of reacted badly to change.
So this is our movie podcast.
Yeah. So what we're doing this week is we're doing a Q&A. We're answering listener questions about the season that has occurred.
About the movie that we just talked about only. Nothing else.
Yeah, it's a Q&A about horror movies.
People would listen to that.
I'm sure people would, yes.
Yeah, Austin, ask us questions about season 8 of Dice Funk.
I will do exactly that. First up, I'm just going to read from the Twitter post. If you follow me at Austin Yorsky, because that's where I ask for questions. We're also going to read some that were put in the Discord, but that's where I'm starting. I'm just going to read them as they show up to me. No particular method to this madness. Christina's Art, at Christina's_art, asks, who was your favorite of the original town members, and who was your favorite character who joined the cast partway through? That's very funny. I could say, just glancing over these, I think a lot of these are going to be focused on one player and one specific action they decided on.
Huh? What?
Yeah.
It was when Aze cried.
Yeah, I bet that's.
It was that one time that Aze cried. That was really
the defining moment.
The defining moment of the show. Yeah.
Look, best character all season, clearly the Pizza Rats.
True. Literally true, though, Queen.
I enjoyed that. I was like, I'm going to get that cat. That's going to be my cat. And then one episode, Cat just had a voice. And I was like, cool.
I really thought Ruth was an interesting character. I'm a sucker for flumps generally. Because look, I like when you get a flump in a position in a narrative where like they would come up against conflict if people knew what they were doing, because they are such a they're just gonna bowl over them. They're not gonna be able to do much. Sort of character that you get the good sneaky moments of. I thought Ruth was really good for that. I'm going to try and do things in a way that I'm not going to be stopped. I found that interesting.
You were considering playing Ruth.
That was definitely an option on the table until look, at a point where I just thought it was going to be Neelith that was going to die, yeah, I was 100% like, I had a Ruth character sheet ready.
And then the de-aging happened, and then Austin was like, maybe don't kill.
Look, there was 100%, there was a Ruth character sheet that got made. We had, like, the ideas were there of, like, what the combo character sheet would be if it successfully occurred.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that happened. I thought Ruth was great.
Yeah, the audience had a really strong negative, in a good way, reaction to her kind of antagonistic arc. Because she was like essentially the antagonist of the Sortition arc, if you think of it that way. I guess I think of it more as like the good neighbor arc, because they were like the physical threat. But you know what I mean? A lot of people were like, oh, she's going to be the ultimate villain. Like, she's pulling all these strings and stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's open to debate, like, how bad her actions were, if she was just like a well-meaning person who bent the rules a little bit, or if it's like, no, that's really unacceptable. This place should have a prison. I think you can decide those things.
But, like, I will say, I think that as a group, like, I think it's impressive how much the audience came back around on Ruth over time. Because, like, it's sometimes difficult to get an audience back on side with a character they've decided they don't like, and yeah.
Having someone die tragically is usually a one-way ticket to a fan favorite, though.
Oh, 100%.
I was going to say, like, with Ruth's situation as well, I think part of it, too, was just a matter of, like, I think a lot of it came down to, like, the framing of what the nature of the Sortition itself was and how everything kind of plays out with it. And then once you had the several downtime scenes with Ruth, Laura, I think that aided in, like, the sort of the character restoration on her part. Only for her to die tragically, and at that point, after all that.
In a similar regard, in terms of, like, not liking characters and them having maybe kind of antagonistic parts and then liking them a lot more, my favorite character from the original Townsfolk is Gigi, who I didn't like at all until just right near the end, with just the last few episodes. I felt like a different side to him that I like. I guess I just really liked that throughout the whole season, I didn't find him relatable at all, and found him to be kind of one of the less interesting characters. Even when he was kind of expressing that he was sad, I thought it was in a kind of way where I was like, come on, man. And then just the last few episodes, I was just like, I get this guy. Doesn't mean I, like, would like to hang out with him, but, like, I get him.
I Mari put in the wrong chat, BRB fart. Incredible. I can cut that out if it's embarrassing, but just perfect.
Yeah. For me, I think of the original, like, villagers, Venta, I think really stood out overall. I think Venta's had the trappings of being borderline just like a joke character of sorts, given, like, a lot of what goes on, but there was a very fun, I think, balancing in Venta's characterization of, honestly, this balance of chaotic energy plus, like, you know, genuine seriousness about the work that they did. And on top of all of that, you had the Kalashtar thing, which I thought was an interesting sort of treatment of that particular material. And last but not least, Venta being a key character to always reliably cause Discord to flip the fuck out and mute Austin whenever Austin was trying to say anything in Venta's voice.
Oh yeah,
very important thing about Venta.
Discord hated the Venta voice. Also, Venta is the character I think with the most the arc as a character that was the most climactic and had the most satisfying climax.
Are you saying that because they climaxed? Is this a joke?
Yeah, I'm talking about when Venta nod. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I guess I shouldn't draw attention to it. I was just...
Look, you should always draw attention to when Venta not.
It was one of those things that had a reach beyond just the podcast itself. So it definitely had a far-reaching build-up for that there. So
yeah.
Mara, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. I farted.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh.
What? I didn't want him to be on the recording.
It's your turn to answer the question, you goof.
I did. I said I love cat, and that cat suddenly one day had a voice, and I was like, I didn't even question why. I was just like, all right.
The other half of the question, I guess, like I liked Anne the most as characters who joined partway through. I don't know if that part of this, if the other part of the question was serious, but I liked Anne. I thought Anne was cool.
I liked that you negged Anne a lot and like really destroyed every bit of confidence that they had.
I've just had a lot of friends who kind of were like a bit of a basement incel and found that like kind of firm but fair teasing was the most effective strategy to make them into a better person.
I literally was thinking about that scene where you kept saying like, "Oh, I don't know, I'm just fucking with you," over and over, and I just burst out laughing the other day. Just
favorite character that came in partway through, Mold.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Genuinely so impressed by how well you took all of Mari's offhand comments and created a really well fleshed out character that was literally just Mari's own statements, but still felt cohesive and consistent.
The reveal of Mold had me going around for about 6 weeks telling lots of people I know I wish I was half as good a DM as Austin.
Yeah, I like the thing that about Mold was, I think I mentioned this before, was that Mari on the side was talking to me for weeks, try to plot up some sort of like, oh, I want there to be like the separate faction away from Slime and all this other stuff, and how are they going to work and what's going to happen. And I kept just noting, just give Austin just the loose idea of what you want to do, and he'll find a way to incorporate it. I don't know if Mari ever
and
did
then
that.
he betrays you and makes it like so much worse. So much
Worse. It was amazing. It was so
no,
amazing.
having to deal with the consequences of your actions.
Mari, I didn't say Mari. First and foremost, you wanted Mold to be antagonistic towards Slime. You wanted that faction to be antagonistic towards Slime and Austin.
No. What I wanted was for Slime to be unable and upset that they wouldn't be able to communicate with another faction because of other political reasons. But anyway, I do enjoy Mold. I just get emotionally attached because I was like, that was my son, bro.
Yeah.
You ruined him.
Mari sowing, Mari reaping, yeah.
Mari is going through the speed run of the type of feelings I had to like, here, I'm going to put a little cute character in my backstory. And Austin's like, yoink. Slap that in the story in front of you and be like, oh, fuck. I will say that as a season 4 callback, this models my reaction when Austin revealed Ash in the middle of season 4. I'm just like, oh, I'm fucking terrified, like shaking in my seat, terrified. So, once again, to echo Sophie's statements, yeah, Austin, I'm jealous that everyone else here is going to continue having you as a DM and I won't for a while. So that's.
I definitely subconsciously and then consciously was like, I definitely have some issue with really wanting to be a mom, and now all of these fake slime babies in this game are my children, and this man keeps trying to kill them, and I'm so
Look, this is the secret of playing tabletop RPGs. You're gonna end up working out some shit with your characters. Yeah. That's just how it goes.
But I will say, I think I've said this before in our chat, I've never felt like I was a furry in any way. And it wasn't because I didn't think it was cool. It was just be like, I just don't feel like an animal. And then I was like, I'm not an animal. I'm a fungus living inside of a dead body. And I feel like that gets me.
I had a really similar experience to that with Wojak memes and all of the people saying return to monkey. And I was like, that's a kind of funny meme, but I don't really get it. And then they made mushroom Wojak, who, like, the joke of the comic is, like, he's never different. He's just mushroom with a little face. And I was like, yeah, man, I get this guy.
I'm entranced by Mushroom Wojak. Okay, I'm going to close this window. Sketch, did you want to talk about before we go to the next question about what the thing you just said?
About, oh yeah. So this has already been announced on Twitter weeks ago by the time people hear this. But in short, the best way to describe it is an opportunity to bring a really great person on the show has presented itself. and and in order to best facilitate that, Austin and I had a discussion, and at least for the foreseeable future, I will be, well, once again, stepping down as a cast member from the show, as of, well, the end of, well, this recording. And it's always a little rough because from my perspective, like there's a lot that I enjoy doing on the show. Both technically, I like doing the behind the scenes help out and like facilitating things on D&D Beyond and otherwise. But it's also just a lot of creative satisfaction I get from this that I haven't gotten from other things I've worked on in the past, and even some other tabletop things I've been involved with. And so there's always a little bit like, it's sad to be leaving sort of thing. But at the end of the day, this is something I do for fun. And and from the standpoint of making sure that things run well overall here, it was just something where we talked it out. And yeah, I will still be trying to contribute in the scheme of doing like one shots. I am working on some Shard Point stuff, trying to get recording for that done in the next week or two. Hopefully that will kind of resolve out, and then hopefully some more can happen. But yeah, it's all I could say is that I'm just happy as always to be on air when I can, and I'm just also happy that I was able to kind of do as much as I could story-wise with Aze as I did. I was not expecting that to turn out the way it did in all of its ways, but I think it was still very satisfying to have his character grow during this season. And I think the last bit of that, of course, is I just always enjoy hanging out with everyone in the call here. So it's probably the number one thing I'll miss about being on the show actively is just hearing everyone in this call on a regular basis. So.
Gonna miss you too, bud. Sad to see you go. And yeah, I really love what you did with Aze this season. I think it's been and obviously like people in the fan Discord have loved it. Like people have been crazy about Aze the whole time.
I like the star stuff.
Oh yeah, renaming all your spells was so cool.
Having a existing character to build off really made it so much easier for me to jump into a new character mid-season, and it was really nice to have that sort of stuff build up throughout the season. So it was lovely.
Yeah, it's wild also just the sheer amount of work that I put into Aze, and I spent all this time with Austin and Joa trying to come up with this constellation stuff in hopes that'd be like the new conduit thing for people, and it just did not land at all in that way with the fans, which was a little sad until I threw out the tarot angle at the very end, and people were like, oh, I can get on top of this. I'm like, that was very fun.
There's the more fan art opportunity in tarot cards.
That is true. That is very true. I actually had a plan of commissioning a set of tarot kind of art for for everyone. That's like a multi-$100,000 venture to go down.
Yeah.
And I'm still on the edge of like, that'd be a great product to do, but I need to like set aside some cash for that. But
Austin, we got any more questions?
For Whom the Kell Tolls at For Whom the Kell Toll on Twitter asks, I'm planning on playing a character inspired by slime. Does Mari have any advice or lessons learned by playing slime that you'd like to pass on?
A lot of Slime's dialogue is like based on just observing the world around them and having the most literal and jaded view on it, but completely flat. Like, just seeing, oh, the world is fucking terrible. Okay. Like, duh. That is there. And everyone, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Where they'll make an observation that's dark but true.
I feel like the way I've always read... The comparison I always have for Slime's dialogue is, what if you had, like, an episode of Daria, but without, like, the smirk at the end of a sentence? You just keep it completely flat and you don't let it have any rise of inflection at the end. That's about where slime's at.
Yeah. So it's like, I imagine slime is kind of like a space explorer. Like, if you were you and you went into a planet inhabited of just slimes, how would you navigate what they do? And that's how I try to do slime. Slime's just like, here. They're not even an animal. They're literally a fungus. Like, they have nothing in common. So they're just being like, I don't know why these people are doing that. But if I want to fit in, I got to do it too. And then they try to do it, but they do it completely wrong because their brain just works differently. And by their brain, I mean their entire body mass.
Bonafide Buffonidae Mike at Slime King Mike, drawer of great art, including the map that saved your life, asks,
Oh my god, yeah.
if your current character had died, which NPC would you have taken over to play the remainder of the season?
Blade!
I mean, can I say same? Like,
Yeah.
I did have, yeah, okay.
You can be the quarry and I'll be the body. We can both be it.
Yeah, I think the first time this was asked, I think kind of at the midpoint, I think the answer I had was Hale, but that was before Hale was revealed to be actually Inri, or slash Laszlo, which then led to other things. So if I had to do it again, it'd probably be Venta, just because, the problem is I couldn't do Venta's voice justice. I'd have to have Austin speak all my lines, which is completely fine. That's less work for me.
Yeah, that's a little untenable. You'd be like texting him, I guess.
Yeah, sure. That sounds like a great idea.
Since Bozogs were introduced in like season 3, people have been asking for them to make a big return. I think they've been referenced a couple of times, but there's never been a major Bozog character. And this season, it was fun, but it also shows why it's just probably not going to happen again in a major way, at least not with the voice.
Hey, Austin, I'm still at some point going to do a Bozog. I don't know when, but I'm gonna Bozog.
Okay, are you going to do the voice?
I mean, I'm probably going to do the voice toned down just enough that Discord is okay with it. So yeah, just a little bit up here. Yeah.
Playing chicken with Discord for 9 months.
Look, one of these days I'm going to be a flump or a Bozog or both, somehow.
A Flozog.
Yeah.
Flozog is a great term. That's awesome. Yeah.
Let's see here. Feeling like a ghost at Evil Inventions asks, is there a reason, this is directed at me, is there a reason why you took over Nobi's role rather than Sophie, other than from drama from people not taking decisions made well? No, it was because Sophie didn't have to play two characters talking to each other, so Kat and Nobi could talk together more.
Yeah.
Was why I played.
Yeah, it was
Nobi
quite
for a while
directly it was the episodes where it was just Kat and Nobi in the village. And it would if you think it through, like, I would have been happy to be playing Nobi for a bunch of it, and I did jump in back a bit there at the end, but like, if you think it through, those episodes, it would be like me going from house to house and being like, stick him up! No, Nobi, that's not necessary. Marina is just crying. No, stick him up! Fanny on the pavement! And it would be, and then Austin would be one voice in this conversation. It would be a whole thing.
Honestly, you've convinced me that ruled.
Even on top of that, we could potentially have reached a point where Sophie was playing 3 different player characters, which, even if you take aside the conflicting interests of those characters, like that's a lot of people to be.
Listen, in the native peoples of the Toriel Forest, it's quite common, actually, slavery does exist, but hang on, you're going too fast. All of this is boring!
So, yeah, I mean, you have a much better grasp of doing that than I do. I can remember all the weird and inane things Slime has ever said. That's my gift. Yours is actually being an actor.
But yeah, it would have been confusing, is the point, and hard. Mm-hmm. So
it also aids in the editing process, I think, when you actually have like two characters that are able to talk, two people are able to talk to each other during something to have that type of pacing. So
yeah,
there's
true.
Logistical as well as vocal threshold and burden reasons to have that happen.
No, that's a good point, honestly. Like, the rhythm of a conversation between me and Austin, where Austin's, as the DM, is all the characters versus the rhythm of a conversation where I have two characters who it's really important that they talk, and then Austin is all the other characters would be really weird.
Derek Ross at Schmaz Products on Twitter asks, Skitch, did you think of Oze as somewhat of a klutz, or was it just you leaning into the dice rolls?
Yeah, so that was absolutely just leaning to the dice rolls. The first few dice rolls happened. He had the pratfalls, and then I reverse engineered that as part of his characterization. I even took it a step further in my own head of it was a direct consequence of like Inri's presence making him more klutzy as a way to persistently get at him for reasons. Like there was a period where I was literally thinking that or something adjacent to the yokai. But yeah, it was something that I did not intend for his characterization. It just felt like a nice quirk to add in after the few dice rolls that led to it.
Cyretha at LS Blackwood asks, Mari, which of Slime's bodies were your favorite?
Ooh, the snow snake.
Yeah.
At first, I didn't want to like pick a body because at the beginning, we were in early 2021 and we'd all just survived that. And I was like, I'm not a person. I don't even want to have a body. I don't even want to acknowledge it. I just want to be a fungus. And that's the concept of where slime came from. And then, Austin encouraged me to actually engage with that. And I was like, well, I don't want it to be anything like me. So the weirder the bodies, the better. Being a demon. And then, Mold was like, hey, I don't respect you because you're not big. And I was like, I know where I can find a big body. And I thought it was thematic because it was like, oh, well, my dead body eats your dead body because when they're grown, they eat the giants. So I also just loved being a dead giant Gyarados. So
that is pretty great.
Can I pick one? I just want to say I love the Hecatoncheires. Yeah, I mean it's Mari's opinion that counts when it's her character's bodies, but new creatures I learned that existed this season. Hecatoncheires was pretty awesome.
Is that the one with all the arms?
Yeah.
I loved that too, because it was also just bizarre.
Yeah, they're all pretty good. It was a good season.
I loved being big, I loved that when we enter spaces, I was like too big. Yes? Wait, okay, so
it's great getting to pretend that you are weird things. D&D's wonderful.
Yes, pretending is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think a lot about, because people are like, oh, this character isn't relatable or whatever. It's like, I make the most unrelatable art that's ever existed. There hasn't been a human in 6 seasons. Everyone is like fucking, and 6 people in one body and rotting, arms falling off. It's just nothing we do here is relatable in any way. And
that's
great.
What makes it so relaxing, though.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to be a horse for a while. It's great.
Yeah, and that's like okay.
Critics rave. Sometimes you just want to be a horse for a while, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Let's see here. Heavy Man Martyr of Hope at Logan Moron 31 asks, what was the plan to pull the Akashic Stone into the plot before Chris changed their schedule? Would a giant roll around and accuse Grendel of stealing it? No, I don't think. I mean, if things were going the way they were, that wasn't a plot element at all. I really don't. I promise, I'm not planning that far ahead. Chris leaving changed pretty much everything. I don't know if we will be, and like how much people listening to this right now will know ahead of time that Chris is planning to show up in this recording. It's a secret.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god!
Shh. Maybe we can get circle back around if Chris shows up for the recording. What, Sophie? Did I bring the Akashic Stone stuff to you about Philippa and why Philippa was in the village? I feel like that was.
It was definitely you. Yeah.
Well, it was me specifically brought up the idea of the item, but yeah.
No, I mean, I gave you like, I think anthropology. No, wait, did I? Did you say that actually? No. I think I gave you like anthropologist studying other D&D races somewhere, and you said the Akashic Stones like are missing would be the thing that I'd come to the village for.
Yeah, so that literally where it came from was like, how do we incorporate a character arriving when we established that the whole point was that we were cut off from everybody,
right?
So
it
had
was,
to be
had to be on the mountain.
Had to be close, had to have some kind of logical reason, and then, heighten the drama. So that's where that all came from. Things would have been very different if Chris was in the left. I talked about the private regional enemy, sworn enemy of the public universal friend.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, but yeah, that changed everything. I mean,
a private regional enemy is just a landlord.
Nice. Very nice.
Cynic84 at Cynic84 asks, Sophie, since you listened to previous seasons, what are some of your favorite moments? Just do a commercial for my show, Sophie.
Across the whole entire. Who was it who asked this again?
Cynic84, are you going after him?
Cynic84, motherfucker. There are 8 seasons of this goddamn show. It's okay. No, I'll be serious for a sec.
I guess my favorite moment of Rolling with Rainbows is when you went to the cat goddess and she's saying everyone loves it here. That was my favorite moment.
You.
See, it's easy.
I was proud of that character. I love Laura's Yu-Gi-Oh! Wizard. Frank became one of my favorite characters from like anything ever. And when Frank surrendered the jewel to a spoilt teenager who has an abusive dad and has a very hollow and shallow life, I cried because it was completely in keeping with what happens in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, while adding like layers upon layers upon layers of depth that like Frank is this like divorced guy who's like really who like seems to have a really sad life on the face of it. You're like, okay, divorced, competitive children's card game player, but actually he's an adult and he's grown up and he knows what he's doing, and this kid doesn't need to be like have his ass kicked in Yu-Gi-Oh! to like that's not what this kid needs. He needs a win.
I'm glad that you noted like how exactly in keeping with Yu-Gi-Oh! That moment was, because 100% I stole the pacing for that scene from season 1 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where Kaiba's standing up against the ledge and he's like, if you destroy my blue eyes, I'll like the blast will knock me off the
exactly
castle.
What I was thinking of.
It's the like look, it's not as important for me to win this card game as it is for you to be okay. Oh, I love Frank. Frank's a bumbling dumbass, and I love him.
Donna Human at Donna Human asks, what do each of you look back at as the coolest thing you got to do this campaign?
Oh gosh, I'm looking at like, okay, coolest singular thing. I mean, Sophie kind of hit on it earlier. Just being given permission to go as Hog Wild with just making my druid the least druid-feeling druid possible to the point that Sophie forgot that I was playing a druid at one point because of how I renamed everything about it. It's pretty great. But I will say that, like, emotionally, it was... I still am surprised by how it was really strong to just have the conflict between Nobe and Aze back at Ventas way back when, and I remember you specifically, Sophie, bringing up the fact that like Nobe's whole rationale for pinning the event later on Aze was born directly from him slapping Nobe.
Yeah, because he's a petty little freak. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think I'm probably proudest of Kat coming out. I thought it was really in keeping with like like I like to make characters trans because I'm trans and I think that trans people are the most interesting people. But I thought it was really particularly in keeping for the kind of like parenting that had been on display from Slime. That Cat would have a relatively easy time just being like, yeah, I want to trans my gender. Like, sure, that's fine. And it would have a kind of easy time coming out because of the weird kind of depressive nihilist that Slime is.
First of all, Slime has 720 sexes, according to real world facts. 2, I literally didn't even register it. I was just like, oh, Cat's a girl. I'm not even trying
completely
to
in character.
I had no reason to question it.
Yeah,
they're
that's
already
great.
they're like a half ant, half lion. Who cares?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's completely in character. Yeah. Just like it's like you say, if Slime has hundreds of sexes, then yeah, why would they even notice? Basically, it was very good.
I believe there was like just like a moment when like Slime just declared that Cat is a princess, and Cat just goes with it, and it's like there's the moment, and just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is incredibly relatable. Someone says something vaguely feminine coded and the switch goes in your brain and you're like, oh no, oops.
Well, it makes sense because you are the daughter of an ant queen.
Yeah.
So it's like, I thought it would have been,
it was really
like, not to, like, God mode your character. I was like, maybe Cat can go back and be like, I'm your princess, fight for me. And that would have been so cool.
So the funny thing is, Mario, you haven't listened to the last season, but Cat was scientifically engineered in a lab by a character, and then it was meant to be a boss fight, and then I want to say Laura's character decided to let Cat live.
I believe so, yeah.
You did pass without a trace. So the fact that Cat is even in the season whatsoever was just a joke about last season, and then it took on a life of its own. I didn't know Cat was going to survive the first episode.
I believe the choice last season was I could have my cool, what was it, the axe baloney?
Yeah,
the big abalone axe, and I was like, no, I'll leave it behind, I'll leave my big cool weapon, we'll sneak off, and Cat got to live.
Yeah, so that's just a wild roller coaster of consequences that this show always is. Let's see here. Coolest moment for you, Laura? I mean, I assume you getting owned by the time cop was up there.
I mean, it was the most dramatic thing I could have that happened this season. It was, I don't know, a lot of this got cut out in the edit. There was a lot of, I really wasn't sure in that recording whether to, I was like,
yeah,
I was real torn on that decision because I was like, I needed to understand what the consequences were, and I wanted to go down the route of Neelith is self-destructive with the level of trying to do what she thinks is right, and like the only correct answer to that, I think, ultimately was for it to play out the way it did. But at first, like I didn't know whether I had to check with Austin and go, is this going to mean just instant character death? Because I don't want instant character death right here. There's going to be a cooler moment for that in a minute, but like
yeah, because we've been planning the murder for months.
I wanted something that was like. Honestly, Austin, I couldn't have hoped for a better consequence in that moment for just like, oh fuck, this is perfect for what I'm trying to do with the character, hell yeah.
I also have to say, Austin, thank you. I will refer to me doing horrible things to my players as them getting owned from now on. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, someone really got owned in your last episode.
Oh my god. Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
Yeah, she did though.
So, one question that has been posed a few times around, but was voiced by Sherazad, was for you, Austin. So this was more about like, were people correct in assuming what the naming convention for the villagers was? I think it's what people who were. The question is, everyone in town named after people who claimed to be Jesus. And more importantly, did Austin have to look them up, or did he just offhand know all these weirdos when it came to the different the NPC character names that you had for the season, Austin?
It hurts my feelings that people think I have to look these things up. No, David Lynch, say more. No, I mean, I feel like the name puzzle is a fun thing for the fans. It's no fun if I step in and come on. If you're trying to solve, it's a fun ARG for you in the Discord or wherever. Come on, you have confidence in your guesses.
Yeah, my yeah, I remember doing like a mild thing with naming conventions on my end for a while. People assuming that Voya's name was. I unfortunately broke whatever naming convention you had for the NPCs with Voya there, Austin. So that was a little bit of a touch on there too.
Well, I mean, that always happens when I have these things set 2 years in advance, and then you give me an NPC. That's why, you give me an NPC before we start or midway through the campaign, which is always like, oh god, now we have this new horse. What are we gonna name them? Fuck.
I really liked if they are right about if that's what the connection is. I really like that because I just I felt like this season was really defined by characters with strong personalities, and that you really did a good job making the characters in Grendel feel like real people who have different kinds of personalities. And I think that a lot of the character conflict came about to repeatedly brought us all to a place where we felt like, God, these characters think so highly of themselves. And the idea that all of them... and that because that's just how you feel about people when you're in social conflict with them. It's not actually literally a common theme throughout the village. It's just different. They're just different people. And that was I thought that worked.
I appreciate that. I think about not just D&D. I was going to say think about D&D, but I guess all tabletop games is often the NPCs can feel like they're just kind of around to give you information and then acquiesce to your desires. They're like, I'm a little potion vending machine. Here's your potion, sir. So when they start getting uppity with you, I feel like a lot of people's natural reaction is like, who the fuck do you think you are? You give me swords. That's your role in life. You're a sword machine. Shut up.
I'm stealing the character idea, Austin. So we got sentient potion vending machine with strong political opinions. Done. Okay. Perfect character.
Bethany Turner at Delta Star asks, what do you think made this season run so much longer than all previous seasons, which were never more than 38 episodes?
That's a mystery.
I mean, it's a very common misconception that was on purpose. It's never been my intention to make them all 38 episodes. That's just how long it takes to characterize 4 main characters and their, surrounding environment. That's how it usually turns out. When we had the big cast shakeup, not only did we then have to characterize and explore, Philippa, but then Kat and then Nobi, and it's just like a bunch of characters got added in the middle, and then to do them justice, we just needed more space and time. The math works as every additional character you want the audience to care about requires X hours of investment.
I think on top of that, I would note that there's a couple of opportunities where choices occurred for a quick solution and a lengthy solution, and we always pick the lengthy solution. But there's also just this season, I think more than most previous seasons, involved big moral questions and a very tight-knit group of NPCs who were going to have differing opinions we were going to have to balance. And I think that led to a higher number of episodes of, we're just going to talk about morality for a bit.
Oh, I mean, the question that begins Plato's The Republic is, what is justice? If we're talking about size of moral question, and the whole the entire rest of the text brings Socrates through education, policing, governance, the economy, imperialism, the right to rule, a weird eugenics plan he comes up with. It's a big question. I just wanted to say, when you said they're big moral questions, it's one of the singular, one of the original big questions of philosophy.
Agreed. Yeah.
Another question from Bethany Turner is also related. It says, strong parallels between seasons 8 and 3. Isolated setting, early departure of a player, arrival of a new one player as an endgame boss, etc. How cognizant of these parallels were you all, and how did they affect the way you approached it both as players and as DM? I can say from my perspective, not only was it deliberate, it was extremely like a huge focus. Like the whole point of it to me was we explored prison and like imprisonment in season 3, but not how people get to prison, which is through the cops. We were kind of uncritical in that, and so it was an attempt.
Yeah.
I mean, literally the mirrors that were so important to season 3 ended up as a weapon in the in-ring boss fight.
Yeah.
It was 100% deliberate.
I would say that, like, I very much played Neelith as the absolute polar opposite of early season 3 Veltari in terms of feelings about anything is justified so long as it gets the result, fuck the people involved. Because, like, early Veltari was very deliberately like, I will lie, I will fabricate friendships with people to make them think that I'm on their side so that they'll give me information. Like, I love Veltari. Veltari is wonderful. Veltari at the start of season 3 is the most cop-ass cop you could imagine. Just like, fucking, yeah, no, I'll do what I have to get shit out of you. I didn't want to do that again in small town policing morality season, and I definitely steered away from that.
Yeah, in my case, the contrast between Roland and Aze is very interesting because they're both very sad boys in their own right, but for very different reasons. Roland as basically kind of a former cop / still kind of a cop sort of vibe is weird because I also just did not. Episode 1, like the first episode or 2 of season 3 was me being presented with Roland being presented with do the cop thing, and Roland's like, no, fuck that shit. But all the time, the difference between Roland and Aze for me as a character standpoint was that I had Roland act as someone who always kind of felt like an outsider, who always kind of felt like someone from outside the community and wasn't of the community ever, even leading to the point that at the end of season 3, he just leaves. Spoiler. Whereas with Aze, I think it was just very important that despite that he wasn't born in Grendel, that a lot of his attitudes came from the fact that he was a resident of Grendel through and through, which informed a lot of how he viewed just the concept of policing, quote unquote, because clearly he was never comfortable with the concept of like having power over his peers like that, and that led to one of the intra-party conflict between sometimes him and Slime, and sometimes him and Nobi and the like. And I think that was I was happy to explore that side of it in a way that I couldn't have with Roland back in season 3.
Also, just a quick side note. Apparently, putting us in tiny little village seasons forces me to whoever I'm playing as a character has to end up bonding with Skitch's character. That's just how it works.
It's also why I decided to do a much darker Flumph. That was a deliberate choice as well, because the Flumph from season 3, unimpeachably lawful good, would never do anything underhanded and shady in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started my re-listen with season 3, and so it was really weird because I was like, well, as in, I listened to season 8 to catch up for where I was going to jump in, and then I was like, I'll go back, and then I decided to go in at season 3 because it's when Laura joined, and then I was immediately struck by how similar they were. It was really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Elderly Goose, aka Sam K at Elderly Goose on Twitter, asks, "Are you surprised with the reaction to the event? And did you expect some blowback from fans of those characters?"
I never even saw it. I didn't even log on.
I expected blowback. I didn't necessarily expect the intensity of it. It was very short-lived, but very bright in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember just how loud it was, and then it dissolved after a couple of very appropriate, pointed comments about what was going on. And
Did people appreciate how much I really wanted to eat Nobi? I never looked.
yes,
They did. They loved it. I'm so glad.
yeah, I mean,
It's all I wanted to do. It was just make him suffer. I had so many plans.
uh-huh.
I was going to I was trying to find a way to maybe I could dominate, person him, and then make him go to sleep, and then torture him in his dream, making a giant Neelith, cook him into all of her dishes. Or, we were going to cut off his legs and make him eat his own legs and watch us eat his legs. Or we were all just going to rip him apart, and I was going to use mass suggest that we all just rip him apart alive and eat him like a zombie.
Yeah, I guess for the record, when Kat killed Nobi, we did what it was. I think it might have been on mic, but you know what I'm saying. It's basically say is everyone okay with this? Because this is gonna take that kind of stuff off the table, and we did agree. So it's not like Sophie said, "No, Mari, you can't be a sick little monster."
Yeah.
I didn't mean to imply that. I was just excited to at least have someone know my plans.
I think your plans were fantastic, but I also think there was something very interesting about an entire episode of building up to Slime finally going, okay, I won't just do this killing out of nowhere, only for someone else to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it was beautiful storytelling.
It wasn't about the eating. I just wanted him to suffer more, It's
Yeah.
no, I like the moment and everything. I'm just saying, in my mind, revenge is torture and making them suffer for a long time. And when you want to solve a problem, you just kill them. And I think Kat did the right thing. They were just solving a problem.
I got a question here from Sophie at Sophie from Mars.
Yeah.
Why is Sophie allowed?
Why is Sophie allowed? Really, that's the only question we have to ask here. Why?
I'll say the fan backlash was shit.
Yeah.
That's the end of my comment. It was shit. That was a shitty way to behave. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did they do?
I'll put it this way: you're allowed to not like a character's death. As I said with season 6, to ascribe real world morality to a person for a storytelling choice is not okay.
I would like to say the next person who does that, I'm going to eat you.
Well,
your username is attached. I know how to find IP addresses, and I'm coming for you. I don't know what they did, but whatever it is, that's an eating offense.
The day after Neelith's murder episode was posted, I lost 10% of my income. So that's how it affected me.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
look, I will say, and I said this at the time, and I'll say it again now. When Sophie came to me with that as a thing that was on the table, I was really interested in making that happen, and I knew it was going to be a painful and very difficult thing to play out. But I also thought the way the season was panning out was that we had done a lot of talking about the nature of what is or is not justice and policing, and Nobi had been built up in such a way that not only did that feel like an important step for, making a lot of the theoretical conversations we had been having with the show that season tangible, and we actually have to not talk about these in the theoretical. But I also thought, to a degree, it was the only way that Neelith's story was gonna go anywhere that would have been a satisfying conclusion for the self-destructive lengths to which she was dedicated to one idea of justice. And yeah, I knew it was going to be tough. It was tough for me. This is my first character death on Dice Funk, and it's one that I knew was coming, that I sort of prepped for. Still hit me like a truck, but I still think it was genuinely the best way to tackle head-on the problem that was Nobi, and the practical question that Nobi raised.
I mean, you remember the conversation where Nobi was clearly realizing, like feeling out the situation for what kind of power he had over Neelith, and Neelith was unaware because Laura was unaware. You were unaware of what the thing was, and I think that was such a fascinating and incredible moment.
Because like I don't know how, I can't remember how much of that made it to air, but there was a moment where Sophie was playing Nobi as like sincerely trying to work out, like, you know, trying to gauge Neelith in that way. I've talked about this a little bit. I attempted to play Neelith as autistic. I wrote some coding. I put some, you know, coding of the character there. I, as the autistic player, did not catch on that Nobi was being insincere. Like, and I was like, no, that's perfect. I think that is, the character is not picking up on this is the correct choice here. It
was really cool. It was just I felt bad for a moment because I didn't want you to miss out on what was going on in the show or to regret decisions or whatever. But like, actually, the obliviousness like worked absurdly well in the lead up to all of that. I want to just say for a minute about the policing discussion that there are really two sides to consider, and Laura has already, I think, really eloquently described the one side, which is making people understand the tangible consequences of bad police. And furthermore, police. I wanted, because I have already said I viewed the central question of this season to be what is justice. And we'd already had one entire episode where we all just debated like different systems of justice and how they should work. And I realized through that episode that like all being left-leaning people here, like our responses to it were all a little bit like, what if the police held your hand? That would be the best way. And it made me realize that was kind of all our characters. We'd all kind of like, I mean, not for the concept of slime, but certainly in execution, like the party had consistently landed on the side of like the solution is for everything to be really nice. And I thought to myself, what is a character who these characters would not be able to say, I don't want them to be punished, and that was the most important thing for me was how do I come up with a character who, like once I was off of Philippa and choosing someone else, I was like, how do I make a character now who will actually test the limits of what we all consider to be justice if we're all like, no, don't punish people for doing anything wrong. And I was like, well, the answer's simple. A cop, right? The person that we all would like want to be punished for doing something horribly wrong is a cop. How cops exist for real. And everything just started sliding into place and making sense. And Austin had already built the character of Nobi a little bit there, and it just made a lot of sense. And I had already been, basically, before Philippa was elected, I was sortitioned. I was already very into the idea of Nobi being like a comic relief character who had essentially the same presence, like the kind of like lovey-dovey moist watcher going around solving everything with rainbows and sunshine, and Nobi is tagging along being, you know, being Nobi, but like with no power. And then like the opportunity for him to have power came up, and then from then on, every decision about the character was informed by what is wrong with the modern, specifically American, but definitely the London Metropolitan as well, police force and other police forces. And so, for example, take the Quarry. I realized the opportunity there because the training that police receive from Dave Grossman, the Killology lectures, are essentially a brutalization process where they are taught that the world is a really terrifying place. Like if you contrast this to military training, when people are trained for combat, they're trained to be as calm as possible and be able to assess everything rationally, and furthermore to try, if it is at all possible, to avoid or de-escalate combat, rather than to escalate. And American police are taught the exact opposite, that the world is a terrifying place and you can only make it safe by killing everything you consider a threat. And and that's the ideology motivating this stuff. And when you think about what that process is in terms of what Dave Grossman is doing in those lectures to the police, is turning their fear and rage and impotence into a weapon more powerful than their guns or their tanks or their tear gas. And and when I was thinking all that over, I was like, wait a minute, we're in a season where there are nightmare monsters who possess you if you're sad and lonely and angry and feel impotent. And Nobi is all of those things. So what if he goes to the therapist and asks the therapist to turn all his bad feelings into something that will make him powerful?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things that as soon as Sophie put the idea on the table with Neelith as the suggestion, I was like, if that's a story to be told, Neelith, I feel like, is the perfect person that people will have strong emotions about that happening to, because that is exactly the kind of person that, a Nobi-style cop would feel vicious. Yeah. Neelith is exactly the kind of person that a Nobi-style cop would fucking hate, and exactly the kind of person who, it hurts to see be a victim of that kind of system.
Yeah, and like on Arze's side as well, I also I kind of have a thing, I guess, where sometimes I react to I think a lot of players, this isn't meant as a criticism of Sketch, this is a pattern I've noticed across like many players who I've played with, that people will role play as if violence between player characters can just happen and then just be completely forgotten, which is very kind of melodramatic. And so Arze slapping Nobi was an example of something that I always like to apply whenever I'm role playing, which is that like if one character like physically attacks my character, then that isn't a relationship situation that is going to be resolved without some kind of consequence. Not to saying, no, it sounds like I'm saying I'll hold a grudge over it, but it's that I'm saying like I think I want to, when that kind of thing happens, it would be poor role playing on my part for me to just be like, and now Nobi's like says sorry to everyone and everything's fine. But it's much more realistic role playing if you yes and it and you say, what does this do to my character as a person? What direction does it drive them in? Right.
I also think that there are some other, like, I wouldn't say they were necessarily pre-designed or predetermined, but there's a lot of interesting parallels with like Aze and Nobi throughout a lot of things after that. Aze constantly putting himself into his own nightmare as a coping mechanism, which the back end of that wasn't fully explored on air, but it's okay that it wasn't. But the long-term goal was him, instead of Nobi, who was intentionally trying to foster those bad feelings into power, that was Ozzy was more just coping and working through his own internal thoughts to come to terms with what has happened in the past and reach a comfort point with it. So it's interesting seeing like the mixture of those different developments. And then also just like I think it was just there's just a lot of really just great things about Nobi as a character to just sort of incite action out of everyone else through what they did. So
anyway, Neelith is a perfect bean who's going to get a spin-off season that's just a happy coffee shop AU.
I have to say, do you think our audience is too young to get a reference to Frank Serpico? I feel like I'm so old. I'm so old and crusty now. But I couldn't stop thinking about the parallels too. I mean, if you may be familiar with the Al Pacino movie Serpico that was made about this person who was a detective, I believe in New York in the 60s, 70s. And then he was like, oh shit, all these cops are extremely corrupt. And then he went to like, his superiors and like, everyone's corrupt. And they're like, yeah, duh, we're all corrupt. What are you doing? And then he went to the media and was like, all the cops are corrupt. And they're like, we'll look into it. And then his other officers are like, hey bud, you want to come into this ambush where you get shot in the fucking brain? And that, to me, I mean, I don't think it was intentional, but that felt like very, like Neelith's whole thing is, here's what happens to good people who try to do this profession.
There's a thing I've heard many times that I think was why I felt comfortable about doing this, is there's no such thing as a good cop because the good cops don't last.
Yeah. 100%.
Because anyone who does try and stand up to the fucked up systematic systems of policing either ends up not a police officer or not alive. Like, you don't stick around if you do that.
This is a much more minor version, but my grandfather was, so my mom's side of the family are police, and this is knowledge of this.
You're half police.
Both my parents are cops. I come from a 2-cop household.
Not a 100% cop.
My mom's side of the family, a lot of them are cops, and so a lot of sort of inside knowledge related into this stuff. My uncle has told me a very hyped story that he was excited to tell, as if he's a Rambo, about him beating the shit out of someone he'd arrested. And my grandfather was a desk sergeant who had superiority over everyone else in the department for over a decade without any promotions, and he knew it was because he wasn't in the Freemasons, and he couldn't join the Freemasons because his mother was devoutly Catholic, and so he waited until she died, and then he joined the Freemasons, and then he became the chief superintendent within a year, and then he was the police chief involved in what the fuck is the name of that riot? But there was a riot under Thatcher that he was the chief sieging. The papers reported on him having a siege mentality in it, and it's just this kind of shit. The way that it seems almost metaphorical to me, the way that he joined the Masons, and then the police tactics that were on display from him were such brutal ones that it feels representative of the system won't let you have any kind of difference from its extremely corrupt, extremely violent, extremely insular, and extremely nepotistic, and designed that way. To be clear, it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's the purpose of police to protect private property and white supremacy.
Yep.
I have to say that I think we were lucky that Sophie did show up, because if you hadn't, I feel like this season might have ended up being all cops are bastards except for our diverse group of great people who just want the best.
They say the next ones will be sent by an autistic squid. Doesn't it make you feel like part of history?
But the way this ended was you killed a suspect you had in custody, and then you all voted that they shouldn't face consequences. So... Yep.
We all agreed on, hey, look, there's no consequences for murdering a cop, it's fine.
Yeah, but also, why do we have to live this non-human society by human standard? Clearly humans haven't figured it out either. Exactly. Maybe just killing them is the right thing. You don't know. Maybe the goblins, they're yeah, makes sense.
I still maintain that direct democracy, with the exception of fuck around and find out, is good goblin law.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I'm still happy to somehow take my bullshit astrology and somehow turn it into a way to analogize anarchism as a valid way of going things by things. That was very spur of the moment when that came out too. I was very proud of that moment.
I love the constellation metaphor you used a few times. It was really, really nice. I really like the idea, these patterns don't exist when you look at stars. Stars are things that are cold and dead, and you don't see them until long after they've existed, and they exist thousands or millions and trillions of light years apart in space, and they'll never know each other exist. But when you look at them, you see a pattern in them, and that's what communities. I really like that.
That was born out of an idea I posed to Austin in early development, because I was slightly inspired by Sui Koden's treatment of the 108 stars of destiny, and this idea of not only were the stars above and below important, but the people around were stars in and of themselves, and the formations that they make act as constellations unto themselves, which I felt that Austin sort of took and leaned into as Voya's sort of ritual that she was trying to cast at the end of the season.
A big shot goose at Tails World 1 asks, Mari, is this your first D&D campaign? If so, how do you think it went?
It's not my first one, but it's the first one I actually finished and took seriously. Because all the other times, I would get overstimulated because I was in an environment I didn't like. But apparently just sitting in my room by myself, that's enough. I'm good. And I was really invested because I was like, I'm definitely going to not put all of my psychological issues into this character, and then I did.
Yeah, that's
Same.
That's very relatable.
Yep.
And it was really cathartic, and I liked it. And I took it really personally when Austin kept killing my children to hurt me on purpose.
You botched repeatedly. It has okay. You actually succeeded, and Mold made it to the end. Mold
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like by all rights, you should have had to kill Mold. I really would have out of my way for you to kill just a little bit of him.
I think my determination as a mother mass really should have said something, I didn't matter how many times I tried brainwashing him out of love. And finally, obviously the answer, I was like, this thing wants love, a dog. Duh. And it worked.
So many of these are just like, how dare you? There are like 3 or 4 of them that are just, what's your favorite NPC and why is it Squelcher?
Squelcher is the only character that can do no wrong and is perfect, and that never did a thing wrong in their life ever.
Mm-hmm. And yet, the Squelcher was still mutilated horribly.
Yeah, but he's a zombie, so it doesn't really bother him.
It's fine.
He's
Yeah,
fine.
it's true.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I just heard a ping.
I heard a ping too. Ooh.
I'm good. I didn't want to interrupt. I was just going to be quiet.
Oh my god, I know this voice. This is this cool person of this podcast I listen to.
Oh, yeah, is that cool person? Yeah, they're very cool.
Well, you're going to have to be clear. You're going to have to be clear because everyone on this podcast is very cool.
Oh, well, the
Aw.
coolest person of all, it's Chris.
Except Austin.
This is the most self-indulgent episode we do. Let's just make it as insufferable as possible.
I'm currently looking at myself in a mirror and preening.
Yeah, I got a question. So this is a simple one from Brown Wolf Conduit of Theories on Discord. This one actually is about the genius. You don't have to answer this in any depth if you don't want to, Chris. Why did the genius of Grendel seemingly refuse to eat in front of anyone? Was there an actual reason for that, or did you?
So you're gonna have to forgive me because my brain is basically that thing you drain spaghetti pasta water out of. Like, it's just holes. So
Colander.
everything leaks out. Yeah,
You
I don't.
drink pasta
I learned
water
the
out
name
of
at
it?
some point. Yeah,
Yeah, but drink it?
yeah.
Explain more.
Drain.
About that.
I think they say drain.
Oh.
Yeah, drain. I mean, theoretically you could bottle it and drink it, I suppose. I imagine somebody out there's tried it. I believe, if I remember right, the logic behind it was that the genius was slowly replacing all of themselves with cybernetics and no longer needed to eat anymore, and that was going to be like a reveal later down the season. But I'm not 100% on all the details on it anymore.
That had always been my assumption, was machine don't really need to eat.
Classic they them trait.
This is another one that's related to both Austin and Chris. And it's a little bit of a season 5 throwback. This is from Alaros Conduit of Anxiety. Was the machine always intended to be the baby box from season 5? Whose idea was it to have it be that? Was that something that Austin and Chris consulted on, or was that just Austin?
That was 100% me. You were trying to decide between a couple of different Warlock patrons, I believe. You were like, should I be this one or this one? And I was like, well, if you're the machine, I already have an idea for it. I didn't tell you right away what that was. And you said, okay, cool. And then later I was... I think at some point I said to you what it was, but I didn't tell you right away.
Yeah, it may have even have been after I left the season. I didn't even know at that point. I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, it might have been when you decided to go. I was like, all right, well, here's the thing: the machine is the baby box that Laura made, and here's so it has time bending powers. So here's how we can get you out of the season and send you into the future with it.
I'm so happy that my dumb little one shot had consequences. Hell yeah. Dice Funk Babies is canon.
Austin, I love this pair of questions from Advanced Lesbionics, just because it's Advanced Lesbionics is a great name, but these are questions about two of the villagers, Austin. I don't think you need an elaborate answer. One, where did Marina get all those drugs? And secondly, why did Applewhite import the tum-tums? I just like the question phrasing. There was emphasis in there.
Yeah, I mean, people who come to the village try to bring valuables to trade for, like, guides up the mountain or equipment to get up the mountain, and some people bring drugs.
Mm-hmm. If I was going to the new world, the fucking brand new dimension that was created by gods for people to enjoy, I'm not trading my drugs away. What? Fucking
some people
plot
don't have
hole.
anything else.
I'm pressing the button right now. Fuck that.
I
Ruined.
I will, on the opposite side, suggest if you live in a little tiny remote mountain village with absolutely nothing to do, cut off from the rest of the world, you'd probably give adventurers way above market odds for their drugs.
Yeah, no, okay.
Oh, yeah.
You got me.
Absolutely.
Also, the tum-tums were imported for pest control because they can sniff all the insects, and they'll all their color gets drained out.
Look at you having answers.
One person asked, Lemon Dragon 234 throughout this question. It's more like a general lore question of what counts as a plane now, because we have like the old world, the new world, the gray, and like the dreaming dark as like locations, but planes, as they traditionally have talked about, don't exist anymore. Is that correct, Austin?
Yeah, I guess it depends on your definition of plane. So the gray is, from one thing from D&D, and the Dalcor is from another one, Eberron, So they're not really compatible, and they're not in the world tree anymore. If you care about the deep lore, none of them are really planes in the traditional sense, but they'll work for like the spells that transport me to another plane, like that. They'll work that way because, I want those spells to still work. But, I wouldn't consider like the old world and the new world planes. They're just locations.
Ooh, I did just see another question from Advanced Lesbionics. Would Neelith have gained any powers if the Ceramorphosis had succeeded? Yes, I'm trying to remember what it would have been, because I believe it was going to be a power that was going to very specifically make it much harder for Nobi to have any chance of killing Neelith. I believe the power was like the one that I remember is being able to sense what was it? Being able to sense all thoughts or ill intentions in a certain radius or something, like something that was going to allow Neelith to be like, oh, I can feel that evil sheep fucking coming.
Yeah, we looked at the flump stat block, and we took the abilities flumps naturally have. They don't have many; they're not very strong. But it was like you can't be taken by surprise.
Yeah,
you can't have your mind read and stuff like that. If you just look in the monster manual and see what flumps do, you were going to add those to your character.
Basically, Neelith would have known if Nobi was coming, and that's the main one that I remember being like, yeah, this could be a thing.
I realized that Neelith, as a character who floats off the ground, doesn't eat normal food, and has telepathy, in the process of planning to murder Neelith, I realized Neelith is like a practically murder-proof creature, except for just good old-fashioned horrible violence. I was like, maybe I just poison Neelith, or maybe like Nobi shoves her off something, and I was just like none of that works.
It was real convenient for you that Neelith suddenly had access to 0 powers.
Yeah.
And was completely defenseless for a bit. That really helped things out somewhat.
Someone in the Twitter replies asked, will Chris come back?
Never. Wait. Maybe. I don't know. That'd be up to Austin, wouldn't it? You're the Lord.
If it was up to me, you never would have left. I would have kept you in my tower like Rapunzel.
Yeah, no, I would say never say never. in like the classic wrestling sense. Like maybe I'll come back for one more match. But the more logical answer is like, yeah, if my schedule frees up at some point and I feel the urge to play again, sure. I do have a character idea. It's a trash can that's actually populated by a dozen mice that are puppeting it, and it just vomits out old eggs. Just old eggs on people. It's going to be a reflavored druid. But instead of turning into animals, just vomit out eggs on people. So I just got to give it like a sad backstory. It's ready to go.
Every couple of days, Chris sends me one of these ideas. Just like, what if a teddy bear had feelings and they were all bad and it cried and it never.
They were all bad feelings.
Yeah, it's like, are you okay?
It's like
You
this
have a bad day
depressed
at work?
robot from the Galaxy's Guide to the Universe, or something like that. What Hitchhiker's Guide?
The paranoid android.
No, the sad one.
Yeah, his name is Marvin, the paranoid android,
Oh, I didn't know that.
the
My
sad
bad.
robot.
Is there anything you were thinking about, Chris? I don't know if you're looking at the questions. I assume you're not.
I'm not in the Discord. The only question I think I saw was something about why I left, and I wanted to keep it vague and mysterious to create rumors and controversy.
They had to save the world.
No. No, it's mostly just, schedule changes and burnout.
We should start beef, though. I think it'd be good for both of our careers.
Yeah, you left because of drama between you and Austin.
Publicly, we riff back and forth. Privately, Austin is just mean. Just a bully. So cruel.
Are you exposing him as an abuser?
I'll say, Chris, we should just make a rival organization and then try to poach talent, but then it rises up to like a cross organization promo.
And then I get to like break into his house and throw him out a window, and then I spray paint my name on his door or something like that.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty
My understanding of wrestling conventions, if you do come back at the end of your career, you have to lose.
It depends where you're in
Yeah.
and who you know.
Oh, okay. That doesn't seem fair. I thought this was all in the up and up.
In a perfect world, it would be.
Mm-hmm. I will say, Chris, that Kaboom and Kablam were amazing, and they were perfect, and I got fucking smacked in the face with wild magic so many times. It was perfect. All right, so that was
excellent. Wild magic's the best. Should be in everything.
Wild magic should be in everything. I want to do wild magic. You took wild magic.
During the re-listen, when I heard the bit where wild magic created the Bozogs, I kept thinking about what if wild magic created and entirely destroyed a new creature at the same time. Like, that seemed like a plausible role that could happen on the show, and just an entire race like blink in and out of existence, and it's just never mentioned again.
Oh, I thought you meant like when the Bozogs were created, just like all antelopes disappeared.
Oh my
It was
God.
equivalent exchange.
the chaos exchange occurs. This is sufficient. Antelopes are no more.
Tragically, antelopes have really pleasant voices.
Yes. Discord loves the antelope's voice. Yes.
Yeah. Antelopes actually sound just like Skitch, that's the thing.
Do they really? Or are we making this up?
I always get flattered when anyone says about they like the way my voice sounds. Anyways, oh gosh, I see a question that's already been answered multiple times. Mari, what thing made you the most worried during the season? And it's
There are a lot of things, because I was like, ooh, I get to integrate with Sun, Moon, Stars. If she dies, she's done forever. Oh my God. And then, like, when we were all killing all of my children, and I was like, and then it turns out I didn't even need to take over the puffball slimes. I could have just defeated their husks and they would have just walked away. So, I brainwashed them for no reason. And then I had to eat my son and watch them be burned alive. It was cool,
So, I mean, the thing about slime mold reproduction, right? I don't know. This is just a decision you made. Is that like anytime your cells split into new individuals, you think of them as like your children, the way humans think of children. I think of it like they're pretty genetically similar. Are they more like twins?
Yeah, but like because slime's trying to integrate into society and they do feel feelings for their for their colonies, I guess that's the best way for them to explain it. It's like, I love that colony because that colony is me and a part of me, but not me. And it's my responsibility.
Lloyd Satan 666 asks, was there any possible way to see the yokai village before it got destroyed?
You can imagine it.
I mean, yes, if what got the village destroyed is mold, and so if Mari had played a goblin who wasn't a fucking slime mold who did the things it did, yeah, the yokai village wouldn't have been destroyed.
Shouldn't have had my titty fly off.
I think we all learned a valuable lesson about misplacing our titties.
Yeah, I should have went off and found that titty.
I have a question. How much thought went into killing the yokai village in that case? To elaborate on that, that seems like a big thing.
So that's a good question. I mean, I knew there were yokai around. I think I said before I picked yokai because they're just a kind of thing that from mythology that are associated with mountains, and I was thinking about how to use them. But just because the show got so shaken up near the beginning, I had to jettison a lot of stuff I had planned. Planned is strong. Ideas I had, I guess. And so we had to have a whole arc about the genius leaving, a whole arc about Philippa arriving, and then we spent all the time on Nobi and Kat, and so we never got back around to the yokai stuff, and so it was easier to just jettison it. I had ideas that could have gone places, but also I'm not precious about destroying my ideas, throwing them out, So reuse them in some form.
Yeah. The question I read earlier was from Cynic84. My apologies for not stating before. There's a question from Mikhail, hashtag stop the shock, Mikhail Wayne, which is, with the parent-child energy that was coming from the tail end of the season, was there a favorite parent-child moment in the season?
I loved when Slime said, whatever you want to do, Kat, I'm against it. Don't you dare rebel. That was fun.
That was very good.
All I can think of right now is the, I think, third, whatever the final time was, but Arze started to float off again right near the end of the finale. I liked having the nice little bookend of it's okay, Dad, I got you, it's fine. I know you can't stay on the ground, it's cool.
Constant wild magic shenanigans there.
Oh, wild magic.
Yeah, I was absolutely not expecting that to become as big of a thing, but oops, Ozzy suddenly a parrot now happens, and
yeah, it's that relationship being that way, I think, was very useful for sidestepping some of this character has come into existence 2 minutes ago, what's going on. It's like, it's fine, I'll stick him with another character, and there's an inbuilt connection, because obviously that's the problem you get otherwise, is this is a season about characters that know each other and have all these interpersonal connections, and one of them has come into being midway through a narrative arc where there's not really time to slow down and chat to people. But it was nice to build from there as a start.
I will say that was just also a case of just the propositions given. This narwhal unicorn is effectively Aze's child, and I'm just sure, why not? Let's go with it. And that was a very fun one. It was very interesting to see the multitude of parental relationships being demonstrated, because we had Slime and all the stuff. We had Kat's relationship with Mold, which was his own sort of parent-child thing. We had obviously Voya and Aze as a thing, and Inri and Aze as another thing. We had what was the other one that I was trying to think of? Oh yeah, then Philippa and Nobi, obviously. And it's just a bunch of parent-child interactions and dynamics that were interesting to explore. So it was hard to pick a single favorite moment.
Weird. It seems like we all have baggage. Funny, weird,
Oddly enough, my baggage did not slip into my character designs. That's kind of the frustrating thing. I feel frustrated I didn't bring that baggage in here. Damn it. I brought other baggage in, though.
You ever seen the Block Island Sound? It's really fucking good.
God.
Block Island Sound.
There was one thing that you brought up earlier, Austin, that you felt like that was important to bring up during this, and that was a little bit about just some of the dynamics of Voya as a character, because that was something that there was a lot of, like, we both had different ideas about what she was going to be and kind of how that panned out.
I mean, I never know what ideas other people have. Other people's minds are unknowable, terrifying swamps of madness as far as I'm concerned. But
You're right.
when you said you had this character in your backstory, it's like, well, either they're going to show up or not. That's the first choice. And it seemed like it'd be interesting if they showed up. So if they show up, either they can be, helpful, antagonistic, or somewhat neutral. And it just seemed like we needed more antagonistic forces, but not outright villainous. And I think it was interesting. I think seeing people react to this, I wanted to do my own take on a lich, which I felt like I didn't fall into the expected conventions of that kind of character. It was fun seeing, especially Laura's extremely hostile reaction. I always love getting a reaction, positive or negative, because it shows you're invested in it. So that was fun.
Yeah.
You're a troll.
From my perspective, the few things of note was I thought it was interesting that while I mentioned that there was an interesting naming parallel between Voya and the character Matoya from the Final Fantasy franchise, that is actually not where her name came from. Because the idea I had for her from a backstory standpoint was simply that she was interested. She worked on the stars a lot. She was important to the village. And at one point she's like, I want to go see the stars above directly and not deal with these fucking inaccurate notes from everyone else. Aze, I want you to take me up above and leave me there so I could study the stars directly. And so her name is actually a reference to the Voyager satellites that were just sent up to space and never returned. That's kind of the idea.
Oh.
And so that's where that came from. Now, Aze's name is a direct reference to Final Fantasy XIV because of the character and the deity. Azima/Azim that's why Aze the Mystic, Azem, is a reference to Azim from Final Fantasy XIV, which is another layer of the astrologian import I was doing on that front. But Voya was like, no, she's just a goblin satellite sent up above to finally observe the stars directly and not be burdened by being stuck in a job that everyone is keeping her in, was sort of the idea that I had. So it was interesting seeing how those ideas get sort of merged around, and it plays into a bit of how collaborative storytelling works, where it's not just on-air improv, but it's also sharing of ideas and different layers of, yes-anding that kind of breeds some really interesting character and story dynamics.
A lot of that sounded really nerdy. Chris and I are jocks, so we didn't understand that. What do you think about the Eagles making the playoffs? I didn't think they were going to do it.
Oh, it sucks.
I forget there's people
hate
that
it.
know about sports and play D&D. You're not allowed to do
Shut
both.
up, Jock. I don't want to hear it.
Listen,
I think it's weird that you like sports. That's right. A girl just called you weird. What are you going to do? Freak out? Probably.
I'm gonna cry.
I'm on Twitter here, and Demon Hunter at Tiger Alchemist asked me a question for Sophie and Laura. You two are the only people to come into a season partway through. What stresses and challenges did this add to joining Dice Funk when you did? And I just thought that was an interesting question, like comparing. Laura, what was it like when you joined season 3? Maybe I'll relate.
I mean, the main difference, I think, having done seasons of this show where I was there from the start and ones where I've had to jump in midway through, is that you have to hit the ground running. Usually the pacing of a season is that those first couple of episodes will be getting to know your character, working your character out and fleshing them out a little bit as you go, working out their place in the dynamic over those first couple of episodes. But when you join in mid-season, you have to go, the story is already going, I have to have a clear idea of what my character is and why they're relevant, and probably how they're going to fit into an existing narrative arc that is already happening.
Yeah.
And I find that is like, that's both a pro and a con, in that you have a much firmer idea of what the story is you're fitting into, which can make it easy to be decisive about what your character should be. But like, you've gotta define them real quick and get going with them.
Yeah, that was definitely a challenge for me. I was really, not sure what to do with the character Philippa for a while. In the not that long, I don't know, like a week or a couple of weeks before I started recording, and I remember both Austin and Skitch suggested I should play a ranger when I was first trying to come up with a character, and I think that was more motivated by what classes already exist in the party and who would fit in well in mechanical terms. And I just couldn't do that one because I just felt like the challenge that would add on top of like trying to jump into a story that was already going and already had all these dynamics, adding on top of that, and it has to be this class, was just like I couldn't do that. And then I ultimately decided to answer to make a character that would allow me to answer the sort of question of the season a bit more directly. So I was like, okay, maybe she's just an academic, and so I'll have a kind of a good excuse to like basically just lecture people about like what she thinks the right justice system is.
Yeah. Like, I think about season 3, and about joining when I did there. Some of the choices I made very early on with Veltari's introduction are choices I don't think I'd have ever made for a character at the start of a season, but that you can make in a story that's already going. Like, the little introductory clip we do the episode before Veltari comes in, where, off the cuff, I decide to suggest to Austin that Veltari has killed a lot of fucking people. Like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, yeah, I don't have to do the, hello, here's my character, they're a big murderer. Like, if you can jump into a story that's already going and just go, that's canon now, here we go, it's a slightly different way of playing it.
I think I was definitely compensating a little for the experience of season 8 in the character I have planned for season 9. People will see when it airs, but like to say in a spoiler-free way, if people care about this, like basically it's a character who is new to the world, just completely new to existence, in a similar way to Basil kind of thing. But like, I think I want to sort of exploring that concept a little more like step by step and carefully. And
Basil came in with a lot of beliefs and a lot of
exactly.
things. I think you should probably have less. Basil came on strong,
and I'm definitely inspired by Slime in that, but also like I think I have been compensating for having to dive in very much in media res in this season.
Well, I'll say in this season, in my defense, Basil, I very quickly had to work out like what their deal was, and you can't like The thing with picking up a new character like more than halfway through, and particularly where I did like in the midst of here is who did a murder arc, there wasn't going to be time to carefully build that character. It needed to just be, okay, what are the like 6 events that Basil has ever experienced? Cool, we're gonna run with those as defining moral worldview traits.
Yeah, I think that with it's, you mentioned this before, Laura, but it's just also kind of wild how like both in Veltari and like in Basil's case, like they're like getting attached to my characters in different ways, which is very fun. Was very interesting to see happen. I think with Basil in particular, with the way that played out was, I think it reminded me of a question that someone threw out elsewhere. I will also just commend that both of you did a fantastic job of integrating very smoothly, it felt like, at least in terms of how the characters kind of settled in and how
thank you
you both picked up on how things played out. Let me see here. Another question elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Veltari was the most popular character that season, and all anyone asked questions about was the event. So,
yeah, I mean, like that was a very. I think that was that a different. I think we're talking about a different the event in that case, or was that a different one? Oh,
several different people have called it the event in the question thread.
Look, I assume if people mention the event, I'm assuming it's the bit where the very sweet character got brutally murdered and everyone was sad.
Oh, I thought this was a reference to season 3 stuff. That's all.
Oh, yeah.
So this is this is a small detail, but I think it's a fun one to unpack. Laura.
Yes.
Why/when did you just decide to have Basil be non-binary/trans?
I've many times before on seasons of this show, in my own little thinking about characters, gone like, yeah, that character's trans, and never really done. Sorry, I laughed because there was another BRB fart in the fucking chat. I'm trying to do feelings.
I got slappy farts, but that wasn't me. It was Sophie.
So yeah, I've had characters before where I've been like, that's a thing I know about this character, and I've never really done much in the text of the show with that. Like I think most notably, I wanted that to be a thing with Frank back in season 4, and just didn't get it to a point where I wanted to be like, yeah, that's kind of the character. And I think like at least a certain part of that was being like, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself as like out trans person on show that's doing the trans characters. Like that was a thing that for a while I was a bit like a little bit of self-consciousness about, you know, having canonically trans characters. This season kind of just hit a fuck it point. And I don't know what it was this season where I was just like, I knew from the start, I was like, I want to do something with Illithid and body stuff and go from there, because I wanted to do something interesting with the Squidling. But for Basil, it was a lot more just the key defining character trait I had for Basil at the start has not really existent. The key defining character trait I had for Basil upon first introduction was doesn't really know anything about the world. And I played that a little for laughs. I played it a little for, okay, I'm gonna see, that's your response to morality. I'm gonna take that as a golden rule. But, like, I very quickly realized I didn't know myself what Basil's personality traits, wants, desires, etc. were. I knew that the main way I was thinking about Basil as a character hasn't really had a chance to discover anything other than what's right here, right now, in front. You know, what's right here, right now. And I think that I wanted to set up Basil as a character who was like, hey, I don't just not know the world. I don't know what my deal is, and I'm gonna work that out. And I've been very deliberate about not, you know, I was very open with Neelith being like, Neelith is a trans woman character. Like, that is, I'm defining Neelith that way. Basil, I've left deliberately ambiguous because I feel like Basil is a character who wouldn't ever get around to finding that label, and I think that'd be okay. I think that Basil is a character who's very aware that time is short and experiences are many and broad and time is fleeting, so go with whatever's feeling right at the time. And you know, the whole epilogue was about her like trying to work out, just wanting to explore and experience, and I think that was right for her.
Don't you think it would have been weirder if a character just popped into existence sounding like a 40-year-old smoker and was just like, I've never been socialized into gender roles, but I have strong opinions already? That would have been weirder, I think, actually.
Yeah, right? Like, that's honestly, that's the thing, is like, hey, look, you pop someone into existence in like right in the middle of life. It's like, oh yeah, you know, you haven't been taught all these weird rules, fuck it.
I saw one question which was directed at me, and I just thought it was an interesting question. I'll try and be concise because it is late, and I'm taking my girlfriend to get pottery lessons in the morning from my other girlfriend, and yeah, so I got it. Okay, but this person asked which was my favorite character to play, because I was playing 3 characters this season. And I've said this before, but like I just liked all of them in totally different ways, because I worked hard on trying to make all of the characters into people who I like who I'm different from, and who don't directly who aren't just my like mouthpiece. And I would say that Nobi was the clearest success of that, but like Philippa I think was maybe like a subtler kind of success in that sense, because like a lot of people I think thought that as I said earlier, I did originally write Philippa's character to just be a way for me to engage somewhat academically in a discussion. But because of who that character was, when I found her voice properly, I think I made her into something subtly different with different perspective on life than me.
Yeah, I think Kat would be the one I most would want to be friends with. I love Kat in that way. And
she can do no wrong, yeah.
And obviously Nobi is one of the most hateable characters in the show's history. So that's also an accomplishment in its own way. Love the characters. You did incredible work. Can't say enough about elevating our boner jokes into something more thoughtful.
Oh, thank you.
Are you trying to go for good vibes here?
What kind of vibes are you interested in bringing? Do you just look at your vibes and feel maybe you were overdressed for these vibes?
Yeah, I was like, whoa, good vibes. It's crazy. No, I had a really, really quick story that I wanted to share that's not really, I guess, connected to Dice Funk, but it was more connected to Austin, if that's all right.
Oh God, here's what happens here where I finally get destroyed. I'm gonna get annihilated in front of everyone.
No, not at all. So just real quick, I recently realized this year that I'm trans and I'm slowly coming out. And one of my first decisions of doing that was to tell people that I was super comfortable with knowing they probably were going to react really poorly or anything like that. And I've had a mixture of reactions since, I came out to certain amounts of people. But I wanted to specify that when I told Austin, I was like, hey, I think I'm trans. Austin's response was simply, congratulations, with like a big exclamation point. And that meant the fucking world to me.
Hell yeah.
In a way I can't explain, because until that point, I had never seen my being trans as something to be celebrated. Like I always kept internalizing it as this weird, like almost like baggage I had to have or something like that. Like, oh, people will have to overlook that to see the person behind it. And this is the first time somebody was like, nah, man, this is something to fucking celebrate. This is like a high five moment or something like that.
Yeah.
And that meant a lot to me. And I just wanted everyone to know that Austin is a very, very good person.
I just want to say, Austin, hell fucking yeah. That's wonderful to hear. You are good.
Yeah. That is the
You're the best.
That is the best response there. Fantastic. Yeah.
And also, congrats! Like,
Yeah,
congrats!
congrats.
'Cause,
Absolutely.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
you were halfway through telling the story. I didn't want to interrupt it,
Yeah.
but you were like, I've been realizing I'm trans. I
Yeah.
always say congrats to
Yeah,
people. And I was
that's-
supposed to go congrats, and then you said it was the point of the story. But yeah, seriously, that's awesome. And realizing that you're yourself is one of the best things that can possibly happen to you in life, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. It really means a lot. I appreciate it so much.
It's been so wonderful telling stories with you all. I've said before, and I feel like everyone takes this as a joke, but like Chris is genuinely one of my favorite storytellers of like my lifetime. Like I'm talking about like filmmakers, like novelists, like
Stop.
It's not an exaggeration, just incredible character work and comedy. And all of you have made my dream job come true by doing this with me. And you own me publicly. Just destroy my entire ass for the whole world to see.
Honestly, all of you have been. All of you on this call are people who, at some point, I've done Dice Funk with, and honestly, it has been one of the most wonderful things I've been able to work on in my life. In that, like, before I joined Dice Funk, I never thought I had the capacity to be part of telling stories, and genuinely, I can't imagine a better group of people to have facilitated being a part of telling some stories that I think are genuinely wonderful and that I'm really fucking proud of existing. So thank you all for being lovely.
Yeah, same sentiment here, and I'll just echo Austin's comment towards both Chris and Austin in this respect. I have always had still working on my own abilities as a storyteller, and it's just amazing how effortless both of you make the experience seem to be, and also kind of effortless to be around when the storytelling is happening. So, I've said this before, and I'm just going to put it on. I actively believe that I am a better person by having been part of this. So that's yet another reason why it's always tough to step away from it as a cast member, because I still feel like there's room to grow, and there'll be other opportunities, obviously, but
it's been really good to get to know you. Like, you've been. This is something that listeners won't know necessarily, but Skitch has been incredibly helpful to someone like me who hasn't had the most experience of D&D before this, like a little bit, but not loads. Skitch is incredibly devoted to the show and to the game, and has such an incredible knowledge of the rules, and also like can do such like really cool stuff with like D&D Beyond, and like help out behind the scenes in really cool ways. And yeah, it's just been amazing to get to know you, and like I'll miss you next season, bud. I want to say to Austin, like, your DMing has just like blown me away throughout the entire season, both in how like a consistent and sound story was being told, while also your incredible ability to improvise. And like, I've been listening to the whole show while I've been playing, so I've been becoming more and more of a Dice Funk fan. And I guess that's a comment for Chris as well. Like, a little bit starstruck right now. Like, genuinely, it's really cool to get to meet you, because like, you're genuinely, like, I've been listening to the podcast, and it's just been like, you've been really funny, and like for all these seasons, and it's been great to realize what a cool show I am getting to be a part of. And Laura, like, we knew each other, but we weren't like as close friends before we did the show, and you've become an increasingly close friend in my life throughout recording this season, and that's been incredible. And I am genuinely really glad that we planned this murder together, because it's been a really incredible like bonding experience to be able to like tell a really emotional, meaningful story like that. And Mari, you're the funniest one. You were the funniest one on the show the whole time. You were so funny.
How the hell? How?
Everyone knows it. Everyone says it. My girlfriend says it to me like 3 times a day. Mari's the funniest one. She's so funny.
My secret is I literally just think I'm logging on to play Dungeons and Dragons. I have no concept that this is a show.
That's honestly the best way to fucking do this.
All right. So it's about time to sign off. I think we've all been very cheesy and corny. I want to add on to that. Thank you very much for listening. We are going to be hearing all these people again. I expect a shard point on my desk as soon as possible. Chris, I'm going to rope you into something. You'll be around. I don't know what it'll be. Maybe we'll just talk about JoJo or something.
Okay, why did I asked people, hey, did dogs die in JoJo's Bizarre
all the
Adventure?
time.
Constantly.
I
was betrayed.
All the time.
I was betrayed.
Yeah, but like the dog that dies is gross and it sucks and you hate it, so it's fine.
Mari, this is why you need the website doesthedogdie.com.
I thought I could just go, hey, Twitter, and everyone was like, it's fine. He tricked me.
Nah, don't trust him. Don't trust him.
So it's time for our famous sign-off, BRB fart.
What, did you want to hear the clapping in the audio? No.
The clapping?
I have dummy thick cheeks. And so when I fart, it's really slappy. But like every person I've ever dated who, once upon being exposed to what my farts sound like, are deeply upset. So I just thought, I should go.
Goodbye, everyone.
BRB fought.
BRB
Is that
fart.
going to be the name of? Is that the name of the episode now?
If you say it, say it.
Oh.
BRB
It's
fart.
already been said multiple times now.
Say it.
Say
Say it.
Burp fart.
Say it.
Say it.
Say it.
Well, okay, wait 1 second here. I got to put the reverb on for this one. Just BRB farts. There you go. Put that on your soundboard and smoke it, you know?
I was following the pack, all swallowed in their coats, with scarves of red tied round their throats to keep their little heads from falling in the snow. And I turned round and there you go, and Michael, you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in the summertime. I was following the pack, all swallowed in their coats, with scarves of red tied round their throats that keep their little heads from falling in the snow. And I turned round and there you go, and Michael, you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in the summertime. I was following the pack, all swallowed in their coats, with scarves of red tied round their throats to keep their little heads from falling in the snow. And I turned round and there you go, and Michael, you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in the summertime.